The bar fell silent as two officers shouted across the counter, their fingers trembling with rage. The women they threatened didn't flinch. No words, no fear. Just two identical faces staring back with quiet strength. Faces those officers would soon wish they'd recognized. The air inside the small-town bar was heavy with heat and judgment. Neon lights flickered over wooden walls, and the scent of spilled whiskey clung to the air like an old secret. Two women stood side by side, twin reflections of calm defiance. Their white shirts caught the dim light, their posture unyielding, their silence louder than any voice in the room. Across from them stood two officers in dark uniforms, faces flushed with authority and anger. Their voices cut through the bar like a blade. They demanded obedience, demanded submission, but the twins did not move. Arms crossed, eyes locked forward, they embodied something deeper than pride. They embodied control. Every eye in the bar turned toward them. Some watched in fear. Others recorded quietly, phones trembling in unsure hands. Yet not one person spoke. Not one dared to step between the officers and the women who refused to bow. Their names were Aliyah and Amara. Born 2 minutes apart, trained together, scarred together. To the world, they were just two women at a bar. But beneath their calm, they carried the weight of badges no one could see. Badges earned in silence, through battles no one ever heard about. Years earlier, in a small desert camp overseas, they had promised each other something sacred. Never let the world break your stillness. When their unit had come under fire, it was Aliyah who dragged her sister from the dust, carrying her 1/2 mile to safety. When the smoke cleared, they didn't speak of it again. Some pain was too private for words. But it was there, hidden behind those steady eyes now fixed on the shouting men before them. The officers had mistaken confidence for defiance. They had mistaken quiet for guilt. And that mistake was about to rewrite the room. "Show your IDs now," one officer barked, his hand brushing the holster at his side. A hush fell over the crowd. The bartender froze mid-pour, watching the scene unfold like a nightmare. Aliyah's chest rose slowly as she breathed in. She could hear the pulse of the man before her, uneasy, erratic, wrapped in power he barely understood. Amara's fingers brushed against her twins, a silent reassurance. They didn't need to speak. They never did. Behind the officers, a woman gasped quietly. Someone whispered, "Why aren't they saying anything?" The silence grew thick, a living thing that pressed against every wall. The officers stepped closer, their boots echoing on the floorboards. Anger and fear were eating at them now. The twins just watched. Then, like a wave breaking, Amara's voice rose, not loud but strong enough to pierce the noise. "You should think very carefully about your next move. It wasn't a threat. It was truth." The taller officer smirked, trying to hold his ground. "And why's that?" Aliyah's eyes met his. For the first time, she spoke. "Because you're about to threaten federal agents." The bar erupted in whispers. The officers froze, unsure if they'd heard right. Then, almost in slow motion, the twins reached into their pockets and placed 2 leather badges on the bar. The gold glinted under the hanging lights. FBI. The crowd gasped. Phones came up. The once loud officers fell completely silent. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to stop. The authority they'd carried moments ago dissolved into confusion and fear. Aaliyah and Amara didn't smile. They didn't gloat. They simply stood. Two women who'd seen too much of this world to waste emotion on small victories. Respect isn't given because of a uniform, Aaliyah finally said, her voice calm but heavy with meaning. It's earned by how you treat people when you think no one's watching. The younger officer lowered his gaze, shame crawling up his neck. The other took a step back, his voice breaking as he muttered an apology. But the twins didn't respond. Their silence was their answer. The bartender, who had watched with trembling hands, placed 2 glasses of water on the counter. "On the house," he whispered, eyes wide with respect. Around them, the crowd grew still, no longer out of fear, but out of understanding. Someone in the back began to clap, slowly at first, then joined by others until the room filled with quiet applause. It wasn't loud. It wasn't wild. It was reverent. In that moment, justice didn't come through punishment or humiliation. It came through dignity, through restraint, through the kind of strength that doesn't need to shout to be heard. The twins picked up their badges, slid them back into their pockets, and turned toward the exit. As they walked past the stunned officers, Amara spoke softly, almost like a whisper carried by grace. Power isn't how loud you can speak. It's how calm you can stay when everyone else forgets how to listen. Outside, the cool night air wrapped around them. The sound of distant traffic mixed with the faint echo of applause still drifting from inside. For the first time that evening, they smiled, not out of pride but relief, because once again they had chosen restraint over rage, and in doing so, they'd reminded everyone watching that true strength isn't about control, it's about character. Aaliyah looked up at the stars, the same ones they used to stare at during long nights on duty. "You think people will ever change?" she asked quietly. Amara exhaled, her tone soft but sure. "Only when they learn to see before they judge." They walked on, shoulder to shoulder, leaving behind a bar that would talk about that night for years. The crowd inside didn't know their names, but they would remember their faces, the calm in their eyes, the quiet that carried power. Because sometimes, the loudest lesson comes from silence. Shareable quotes. Respect isn't given because of a uniform. It's earned by how you treat people when you think no one's watching. Power isn't how loud you can speak. It's how calm you can stay when everyone else forgets how to listen. The loudest lesson comes from silence. In a world where anger often drowns out understanding, stories like Aaliyah and Amara's remind us that real strength doesn't shout. It stands firm. Their silence became a mirror, forcing everyone around them to see their own reflection. If you believe in calm strength and quiet justice, let us know where you're watching from, and share your thoughts below. Subscribe